very warm welcome to all of you. And as some of you understand, some of us know each other quite well, and that's really nice that we connect again. Great pleasure to see some new names and unknown people to me at least. So you are all really warmly welcome to this. Will be very interesting and really touch upon some of the really key questions, I guess, in many people's lives, which is about bringing children into the world or not, or how to do it. Maybe in particular, when you come from a Huntington family, which I also do, this is not just something that happens without some consideration. So this will be a very interesting and nice evening, and I'm really grateful for Rob stepping forward, as he very often do if he can. When we ask him, he always says hey, and is willing to share from his life and his own experience, which is amazingly valuable. So the topic, bringing people into the world, is really, as I said, touching upon some very personal emotions and aspects of life. And before we get started, I just wanted to touch very, very briefly, and I didn't prepare a presentation because it should not be a lecture, about the options that we have today in principle, I would say. And that is, of course, bringing children to the world in the natural way, not interfering in any way from the medical perspective, and bringing from a Huntington perspective, then bringing people at risk into the world. But the other option is that there are offered so-called pre-implantation genetic diagnosis, which is a procedure where you take eggs from the female and bring out of the body, and then you do the insemination artificially, and then you test that what's it called, embryo or the egg, and see if it has the Huntington gene or not. And if it doesn't have the Huntington gene, it's being brought into the woman's womb and hopefully then develop as normal, just knowing that it doesn't carry the Huntington gene. The other way also offered is so-called prenatal diagnosis, which means that you conceive the child in the natural way, and then the test, the genetic test, is taken in the woman from the woman's womb to see if the embryo has the Huntington gene. This procedure is being done under the assumption, or really the understanding, that if the child then, or the embryo has the Huntington gene, you will do an abortion. And this is, of course, because we don't allow for parents, in most European countries, we don't allow for parents to test children. It's a personal choice that has to be made when you are 18. That's the law. So these procedures are technically, in principle, possible. It's different from different countries due to regulations and laws and political and medical also availability, accessible. It's not something for just to everywhere in Europe to just raise their hand and say, I want to do prenatal or I want to do what's it called? It's so difficult name. Implantation genetic diagnosis. So that has to be, you have to check in your countries the possibility to be helped by these procedures, and to what extent and how it's being reimbursed. I know from my country, for instance, in Norway, it's being reimbursed for couples, but you need to know your genetic status. It's not offered to at risk, but if you have gone through and got the knowledge that you have the Huntington gene, then you can apply to these procedures, and then you can be approved to get 3 attempts. Because obviously there is no guarantee attached that the embryo, when it's being implanted again, that it will really develop into a baby. But you are given, or you are reimbursed 3 attempts. But if 3 of them fails, then the public healthcare system says, okay, now you're not being allowed to do more attempts on our cost. I guess there may be private clinics being able to offer you at your own expense. So just so you know, the regulations are different. You need to check out in whatever country where you are to know what's being possible and what's being offered and reimbursed throughout Europe. So that was just a brief, probably most of you know, but I just thought it was nice to have these kind of options clear in your mind when we go into this topic to discuss more. And first now we will show you a video because a couple of years ago I went to a talk by a Norwegian author, by coincidence I would say, and then I was just mind blown because he told his story about being affected by a rare genetic disease. And he had written a novel about how his family, how his mother, and how they have dealt with this. And I thought Huntington families were the only ones who weren't able to share, who were so full of fear and shame that family members didn't know about each other and the disease. But he told the exact same story. And being a writer, he's excellent in describing and reflecting upon this and explaining how this can be for families and for him personally also. So I thought it was so interesting to have his voice heard in our community also, to reflect upon our own attitudes, our own mindset in relation to these really, really important aspects of life. So that's why Maiken and me, we went to his house and we interviewed him a couple of months ago. So Maiken, are you ready to share with us?
Yes, I am. Can you see the screen now?
Yes.
Okay, Torvald, so nice to be here in your house in Oslo. You and me, we met first time a few years ago, and I was so surprised because your story, because you're suffering from a rare disease, and it struck me that the things you were talking about has so much in common with us who are affected by Huntington's disease. Mm. I also know that when meeting a person and fall in love is a very scary moment if you haven't told, because you are afraid they will walk away, of course, when they learn about it, that you have a disease. How was this for you when you told?
First time when I talked with Marianne, I couldn't mention it for her the first time at all. She was in love with me, and I had answered, sorry, but I'm not in build or in shape for thinking about things like this. So I said, you are fantastic, I wish you all the best, but it can't function. And she went away from Oslo to the north, and we met again 4 years later.
Did you tell her at that time?
Yes. I was in a sort of a fatalistic thinking. I don't know the easy way to explain this.
Take it or leave it in a way?
Take it or leave it, or fatalistic. This was also important that I was honest and showed that I take it or leave it.
So When you told Marianne, you said you had to do it and you had nothing to lose.
Yeah.
And how did she react?
She said that I have thought that this could be the reality from the first time we met.
So she suspected it.
Yeah. And she said that the way you are handling it, your attitude impresses me. And I understood that she really loved me. It wasn't a fake or something she did for saying this for being nice. Not very late afterwards, she even said that she wants to have a child with me. What? You know how the situation is. It's a 50-50. But she said, well, we have lived together in some two years, and I have known you for many more years. Even if the child should have your genetic disease, I want it. Then I understood that I do not sleep so very well. So, but she sleeps very well. So maybe I could be a little help in the nighttime. So I'm listening if the small ones needs help, I'm the alarm. I'm the alarm. So we got our first child, we married, we had 3 children. The doctors have said that you must remember that it can come, that the new child can have my disease. Well, Marianne have the last word. Well, I have a very long experience with football, and I will manage this.
Did you feel that as a kind of a pressure not to bring children to the world?
Yes. I was wearing the society eyes. And someone will now protest and say, but the society says we shall take care of those who are different. But that's not true.
That if you know about a genetic disease, you should not bring children to the world in a way, with a risk.
Yeah, 3 of the Nobel Medicine Prize winners after the Second World War, have this political view about these things.
I've been thinking a lot about this because I also brought children into the world knowing about their risk, because I had a risk myself. And I hear so much in my community about that this should not be done. And now for Huntington's disease, many people can have this genetic test done before implantation, so you can know that you just carry a child without the mutation, the bad gene, and that this can be really felt like a big pressure.
Yes. When we got our first son, we had a sort of light pressure on it. But then we got number 2, it increased the pressure.
Yeah.
And the third, wow, it was enormous. It's many years between these 3 children. So we have seen the development in the society.
It's been worse.
It's absolutely worse. And it's also 2 doctor degrees showing this in medicine and in nursery. Now we have a medical situation, medical experiences, medical development, which can help a lot of children with problems. And we have also a lot of chances to quit them. Mm. This is our time's biggest paradox.
Because now we have the option to choose disease or not disease in a way, and before we didn't have to choose, it just happened.
Yes. But I will also say that I do not blame women who choose to stop or to
no,
choose.
That's important to say. It's a personal choice how to solve this.
I've said this now 100 times around in whole Norway, that remember that this is your choice, but it must be a free choice. That's the only thing I ask for, that this choice is free.
So that was Torvald, and a little bit about his opinions or his perspectives, his thoughts about both personal choices, and also from a little bit of a political perspective in a way. But what we have asked you to do, Rob, is to share a little bit about the reflections you have done together with your partner and the choices maybe you have done in relation to having children.
Yeah, I can happily do that, no problem. So hi everybody, my name is Rob. I am from the Netherlands and I'm a Huntington gene carrier. I have 40 repeats. I inherited them from my mother and through my grandmother, let's say, as far as I can find the lineage. And yeah, so I mean, I'm 38 now. My partner, Alina, she is, well, 38 in a month, but I already am counting it as such. And my partner, Alina, she is 33, and we are together for quite a while now. And we are now on the, let's say, the path towards children. Yeah, as actually currently on this moment. And I'll come back to that in a minute, maybe, but I got diagnosed about 8 years ago when I was 30. But already before that, in my mind, let's say I made it clear for myself that if I would ever get children, then with me, let's say the disease would stop. So one way or another, I have a very big family, and I've seen the good, the bad, and the ugly of the disease, and I decided, okay, that was my personal choice, is to say, okay, I'm gonna make sure that after me, that stops. And maybe exactly for the reasons that Torvald says. I mean, the technology is there. I'm a scientist, so I like these technologies in a way. They can bring a lot of good things. So yeah, for me, quite early on my own, yeah, without a partner, I made that decision. This is not gonna continue in my lineage, let's say. Then of course Alina came into my life, and that well, let's say on the second date, at least, we already talked about Huntington. So I was quite, yeah, that is definitely true. I didn't wait too long, let's say, to discuss this. It was we had a good connection, and I think talking about that on such an early moment was important for me, at least. And I think she appreciated it because she stuck around. So that is also good. And also, I think quite early on, we discussed this topic together. And I think it was not really much of a discussion, to be honest, even without knowing the full implications of Huntington's disease and the genetics. She said, so we can prevent it. Okay, then we will go for the prevention option. We didn't have a wish for kids at that moment. Yeah, so it was not that we were immediately trying and so on. But now we are a bit further along the line. And recently, like 1.5 years ago, we started with what is then the pre-implantation procedure, let's say. So with the IVF option. And that is, I have to say, it's at least in the Netherlands, so I don't dare to speak for other countries, but in the Netherlands, this is really a good structured way of going through different phases, where you go to the women's clinic, you talk to some people, also social helpers. Then we had to go to the clinic where they do the PGD testing, so the pre-implantation testing. We were interviewed there. Look how we, if we are certain that we want this. We got offered the other option also, so to prenatal testing. We had, well, quite a good talk actually at home or along the way there and back about all the different options. And yeah, for us, then we made the decision that we would go for the pre-implantation option. Because, and now I'm going to speak for my girlfriend, and of course, as a man, you have no way of how that must feel, but for her, it was extremely scary to think that she had to go through an abortion. And I think that was for her really, yeah, a scary thing to think about. And she didn't want that, especially not if it would work and you would have life, and to end it, that was, yeah, okay, even if I think about it, it makes me tear up already. So this is not, I think, for us, this was not the right way to go, let's say, emotionally. So we went for the other option. That takes a bit of time because they have to develop a test for you and so on. So we started about 1.5 years ago, and we were supposed to start roughly around April this year with this whole thing. I don't know if you followed the world news a little bit lately, but since April, life has come a bit to a halt. So that didn't happen till, well, at least in the Netherlands, let's say the first lockdown was done just before summer. Numbers were going down in August, so let's say July, August. And then we got a call, we have a spot for you, you can come. Yeah, well, so in the end, the conclusion now is that we are sort of during the first round of injections, so the hormonal injections. So very scary times with hormones flying all over the place in a good way, I think. And hopefully soon the next step, going to the hospital, and let's see if it brings us something. As Astri said, I mean, there is just because I'm at least in the Netherlands, let's say how it goes, it's the same way. So you get 3 chances. And they say after those 3 chances, there's roughly a 50% chance that there will be, let's say, a pregnancy. So that is roughly the statistics at the moment. So we will see how we will go through this first round. And we also, we are fully aware of that this might not result in a pregnancy. And actually we talked about that because this is, I mean, the chance is equally high or even higher that it doesn't happen. So I think emotionally you have to prepare yourself for that, not to be disappointed that it doesn't happen. So we really talked well about that. And okay, we decided that for now, at least, we will see how it goes, that we won't push it all the way just because we want to. We are quite happy in our lives. We are now quite good together. So if it happens, we're happy. If it doesn't happen, we will be sad for sure, but not totally heartbroken and devastated. And we will find other ways to care for people in a different way. Maybe it's time for a dog or a cat at that moment in our life. I don't know. We will replace something. I mean, I see some dog people here in the audience, and I know how fond they are of their pets. So I'm quite sure I can do the same. But yeah, so I mean, it is an emotional roller coaster at the moment, and yeah, okay, we decided not to risk it in that sense. Then again, of course, this is my choice, but I fully agree with Torvald, and I had a talk about it this afternoon with some students, is that as long as you make a choice, because especially in Huntington's disease, when there is a taboo, families want you to hush maybe or not talk about it, etc. you can be pressured either by society or family to do something they want and not what you want. I met at one of the European Huntington Association meetings. I met quite a number of people, but I know one girl from Germany, actually quite young, who is at risk and decided, even in current day and age, to risk it and get pregnant. And she has a baby boy at the moment. But it was her conscious decision that she said, okay, my mother has many little repeats. I don't know how many I have because I didn't get tested. My mom was 60, she was still okay, late onset. Well, if my kid gets 60 with late onset, then, you know, she has the kid has a very good life for 60 years. So what is the problem here? We have a good care system. And, you know, I think if that is your choice and you thought about it, I can respect that. It's not my choice, but at least it's not something that I would condemn as bad or anything. I can follow that reasoning. But just, okay, it's not my reasoning, but that is something completely different. And I think that is, yeah, as I said, that's important. You have to make your choice. And I mean, at least at home here, we talked about this a lot. And I think that is what is important. If you both agree, then everything is fine.
Do I understand you correct that you're saying that if this option doesn't work, then you outrule any other option? That it's this or not? Is that what you're?
Yeah, so let's say we're not going to do it the natural way, that we're not going to risk, for example. Okay, that's our personal decision. Yeah. So that yeah, so that is what we said now, and okay, that is now at the moment how things are, and you know, you never know how feelings develop and how your personal life will develop. Maybe our opinions will change, and you know, that can be. But at the moment, we said, okay, we try the IVF with the pre-implantation diagnostics. If that doesn't work, then that is it for us now. Yeah.
Just out of curiosity, because of COVID, things were postponed. But did you have to wait for a long time to be enrolled into this kind of procedure?
So
do you know anything about that?
Yeah, so normally, at least in the Netherlands, but it might be country dependent, I don't know. But let's say in the Netherlands, they say it can take up to, from the first consult, let's say, so the first time you speak to a specialist on this, till the moment it actually happens, it can take up to a year easily. Because also the development of this test takes already up to half a year. So you have a few conversations with, you know, social workers and with, you know, people from the women's clinic and fertility clinic and so on. You get all those tests done, and then they make the test for you. So that's already 9 months down the line or something. And then comes the waiting to be actually part of the IVF procedure. So then you're easily a year along the way. So that's why we also started it like last year before summer, and we were supposed to start around April, let's say. So, yeah.
Okay, so now it's really a time with hormone treatment, as you said, and they would then they will extract the eggs and
Yep.
Yeah. So it's quite demanding. You did say it, but it can be quite demanding. I've just heard about others who do it and who feel it's really taking a lot of energy and yeah.
Yeah, it
effort.
is. I mean, I have very pleasant experiences with all the clinics I've been, so that helps you, of course, a bit, you know. But still, having Netherlands is not a big country, but let's say the only pre-implantation clinic is all the way in the south of the Netherlands, so it takes you 2-3 hours to travel there. And then you have to travel back, so it costs you. You lose a day just for a 20-minute talk with a specialist, which is for the good causes. So I mean, they do it for a good reason. But yeah, it does cost you a lot of time and effort and clinic visits, either in the hospital here or a hospital there. So it is a time-consuming and energy-draining thing. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
I want to be a positive person. I say this prepares you on what happens if you have the kid, right? That.
Good point.
Definitely also not relaxing, I would say.
Very good point, Rob. Great. So people are thanking you a lot in the chat for sharing this, and are wishing you really all the best and good luck with the results. So hopefully you can come back in a year or so and show the result to us.
Yeah, let's say one way or the other, I can always talk about this. So if it's bad or good, I'm happy to share any story next year. No worries.
That's really good. Good to hear. I wonder if anybody in the chat, or if you want to unmute yourself and say something about your own thoughts about this, please feel free, or ask a question if you have a question. Dina, did you unmute yourself?
I did.
Yes.
Rob, thank you so much for a very personal topic to talk about, because not everybody, even people who are undergoing IVF who are not HD related, is a very personal thing. And a lot of people don't even want other people to know that they've gone down that road, which I don't understand why. But and I think one of the topics, the video was absolutely fantastic. And I think one of the topics that everybody should be is respect, because not everybody thinks alike. So for somebody to have a family like yourself, Astri, and somebody to say that that's the wrong thing to do is not the right thing to say, because it's your views, how you feel is your own personal story. And other people need to respect other people's opinions. And so a lot of you, I know a lot of you, but the ones that I don't know. So I'm at gene positive, I'm 57. I already had my kids when I found out about HD with my family. But one thing strikingly that I remember from my genetic counseling, which actually shocked me, was the counselor asked me, if you didn't have kids and you knew about the HD, would you have gone ahead and had your kids? And when she asked me that, I was silent, because I wasn't expecting that question. And I didn't think it was appropriate for her to ask me that question, because I can't, how do you answer a question like that? I'm not in the time and the place. I would think that I would go through what Rob is going through. That's my personal views. But at the moment in time, you cannot say what you're going to do. And I always thought, you shouldn't be asking that sort of question to me. And I don't think other people should be asking that sort of question. So I think you have to be very respectful of other people's thoughts and opinions. That's just my thought.
Can I ask you, Dina, why have you reflected on why do you think she was asking this?
I don't know. I honestly don't. And I think at the time, the whole genetic counseling for me was a big ordeal, as it was. I knew I wanted to know, and having to go there every month for 3 months to speak to her was like, oh my God, I really don't want to do this. And I would sit there thinking, why am I here? I just want to know my test results. I just want to do it. I now fully comprehend why they make you go through that. And I wouldn't want anybody not to go through that process. But to be asked a question like that day was, I don't think that was a professional question to be asking somebody. I can't turn back time. And I don't know what I would have done if, now the genetic testing wasn't available when I had my oldest son, but it was when I had my youngest son. And I still don't know what I would have done. I can't go back in time and think about that. So.
No. Thank you, Dina. Thank you so much. Anybody else who would like to comment or ask a question or reflect on this?
Hi, Rob.
Hi, Philippa.
Thank you for the presentation. Really, really nice, and you are a brave couple. What I wanted to ask you is, for example, here in Portugal, one of the things that the association has struggled was for having different waiting lists for couples that have this kind of diagnosis from the couples that have fertility problems, period. How does it work in the Netherlands? Is it the same waiting list?
Yeah, as far as I know, let's say, of course, there's the delay for making the test, but the moment the test is there, you just go on the general fertility clinic waiting list, and then they just, as soon as they have a spot, they will schedule.
Okay.
Yeah. So for us, it's, I think, the same, because it was surprisingly quick, actually. After the test was done, it was in no time they came with a moment, so we were happily surprised.
Yeah, here it's not that short period, it's longer, so the waiting list is longer. But we were trying to make this happen because time is an issue here. So, and of course for the fertility couples is also an issue, but it's in a different kind of way. So we were trying to see if they could implement this kind of different lists. That was my curiosity, but it's the same.
Yeah, and I was just thinking, because indeed you say that time is important, actually, because I was just, as I said, I'm close to 38 now, and I remember that my mother had her symptoms, let's say late 40s, early 50s. So, you know, I don't even, I recently did an interview for like it was a day about DNA and diseases, but also so about things like PGD. So I did a little interview, and then the interviewer asked me, and I didn't expect that question because I didn't think about it, and said, but what now if you are, let's say your kid is 10 or so and you start to develop symptoms, does that actually impact your choice? And somehow I didn't really consider that. I don't know why, because maybe I'm too optimistic, thinking I'll be 60 when I get symptoms, and then the kid should be out of the house and on its own legs or something, I don't know. But that was actually, it held me back a bit, and I had to not reconsider, but I had to reflect on that a little bit, because, you know, knowing that the erratic behavior of the disease could also mean that tomorrow I could have first symptoms. And so I did that interview, and it was posted online. Also on our association website, for example, the link was made, and somebody actually responded below it saying, yeah, you should not have kids, because, you know, you shouldn't do that to the kids, because the kids should be happy and not have maybe a sick parent. It was a strong opinion, but okay.
Yeah, people tend to have really strong opinions in these hot topics.
Yeah, especially online, right? So
especially online.
Yeah, but okay, you know, it is something to reflect on. It's maybe for me personally, it didn't change my opinion, but it still is something.
But do you think that should have been addressed in the interview or in the previous contacts you had with the team?
Apparently it didn't come up somehow, you know, and okay, we are quite conscious, the two of us, let's say, we share everything, and we had good talks with these doctors in the clinics, but apparently that topic, let's say, didn't pass the whole spectrum of things we discussed. Not by omission or anything. I think it just didn't come up somehow, and yeah, I had to think a bit about it afterwards, I have to say.
So
really, yeah, sorry, Dina, go ahead.
So Rob, do you think that question didn't come up because they're treating the same, just IVF couples on the same level as, or is it a different team of counselors and?
Yeah, so let's say the actual IVF clinic where we are is just a regular IVF clinic, so fertility clinic. But the PGD clinic, I mean, PGD is not only for Huntington's disease, and then a short list of a couple of diseases that you can have the pre-implantation diagnostics. But let's say the leading lady of that department is a specialist in Huntington's disease. And the team actually has a big specialty in Maastricht hospital. They have an expertise center in Huntington's disease. So they are very, very aware of the disease, but also there it didn't come up actually. So I I think, yeah, I don't know. I think it just didn't come up, not by any mistake or anything, but just not.
Osvaldo has a comment to it, and he says that if any one of us should think about the bad things that may happen in life, humanity would have been already disappeared from this world.
Might be true.
Yeah. And I also think that it's interesting because you put a lot of responsibility on people that has Huntington's, but if you become a parent, you always have this risk that something may happen to you, or you may get cancer, you may get hit by a car, you know, you always have this risk. So yeah.
No, that is definitely true. The question is, I mean, I don't know, I don't dare to give the numbers, but the risk that you are now being hit by a car is infinitely smaller than me developing symptoms for Huntington, which is definitely certain. So it's a risk assessment. I think in every country, there's risk assessment teams for our healthcare system and so on. I don't want to do those numbers for me personally, so I stay away from that.
Well, I think this is a really important issue, and I mean, my opinion is that it's fair to bring up. Have you thought about, because you know you will develop the disease at some point in time in life, but have you prepared? Have you thought about how to be prepared for that situation? Is different from would you choose differently, because life doesn't come with a guarantee. And for me, being at risk, so my child had a less risk than your child, or now you will have one without if you're lucky and have a child. But anyway, I was thinking I need to pick a good parent, the other parent, huh? So, and as you're saying, my partner is a good one. So because they have to take more responsibility when you are developing symptoms, as I was thinking about myself, the father of the children needed to be able to take responsibilities. And
I don't know if you did a good job. You did a very good job. Yeah, you found a good parent.
So this is my daughter. Maiken is my daughter to everybody who doesn't know.
So could I ask Maiken a question? How did you feel growing up with your mother's decision?
Yeah, it's I didn't really think that much about it actually, because I was very relaxed about it, because we were always, I think it's because both my mom and dad, they were talking a lot about the disease, and it was just a normal part of our life. So yeah, I didn't. And then Astri, my mom, also decided to get tested when I was 17. So I didn't really come to that point where I was actually realizing that this might be a part of my life, you know, because I was still quite young before I actually knew if she had a disease or not. Yeah.
Thank you. Sorry if I put you in the spot.
No. That's very.
So you were not so concerned about your own risks. That's what you're saying, huh? It was far ahead in your thinking in your own life. Yeah.
Mm.
When I had children, we did not know Huntington's was in the family. And I wish we did, because, you know, I think you need to know this information to make proper choices, and different choices possibly, or two of my children have tested positive, and as a mother, I don't think I've ever really come to terms with that, because I know what's coming for them. I find it particularly heartbreaking because, you know, you like to think that your children are going to have long, 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 happy, healthy lives. And when you're in a situation where you know that that might not be possible, it's very, very difficult to accept it and get your head around it. And I wish I had known. I wish I had known. And okay, PGD was not around way back then, but you know, it was years later. Maybe I might have been young enough then, but no, I just wish I knew, because I felt like, you know, looking back now, we had children in the dark without knowing the risks. And as I say, walking down that corridor in the genetics unit with your 3 children, and two of them coming back with the news you just don't want to hear, the news that they don't want to hear. I've always said that even if a cure is available in 2-3 years, that you know you're going to be safe, the impact of that news on those 2 days left such a scar on my heart that scar will never heal. I will always remember those 2 days. And as a mom, you want to protect your kids. And when you're in a position when you know you cannot protect them, it's difficult. It's very difficult, and it's difficult to come to terms with. So I just wish, you know, like Rob, you know, you can make, you know, different choices. I didn't have that, and I just wish I did.
Can I ask you, Anne, because this is really, of course, it's not difficult to understand your perspective based on your reality and the things, how things have turned out for you and your family in this. But do you feel responsible for having brought this in a way upon your children? Is that also something that comes into
No,
this?
I don't feel responsible, but I do know my husband did. And even though he didn't know his status at the time, we just didn't know. Our children were born, and the youngest one was, I think, 5 or 6 before we found out. But even though he passed it on to 2 children, but absolutely didn't know what he was passing on, he still carried enormous guilt. He carries enormous guilt that, you know, he knew one girl tested positive and it nearly broke him. We never told him that the second girl tested positive. He was much later on in the illness, and there was just no point in telling him. But that first diagnosis of the first girl, it nearly, it broke his heart. It absolutely broke his heart. Because he, like your partner, was a good one, and he would have been the most amazing dad. But he got sick when they were very, very young. He got sick in his very early 30s. You know, and then we had 3 small children that had a huge burden of care put upon their shoulders, because they had to help me take care of Dad, you know, and that wasn't right either. But it just was the way that it was. But he himself felt huge guilt that, number one, that he passed it on, but number 2, that they were giving up so much of their young lives to help care for him. And this was not a conscious decision that he made to have children knowing his risk. He didn't know. And even though it was not his fault, he still carried this huge level of guilt that he passed it on, and then this huge level of guilt that his young children had to help take care of him. So.
Thank you for sharing. I just want to clarify a little bit, because Maria is asking, I don't really understand, because some of us know each other well, and it can be hard to follow. But Anne's husband is really in a very advanced stage of the disease, and she has 3 adult children, and 2 of them have tested positive for the HD gene. So that's why she's talking about, she's gone through this, bringing children to the world, and then experienced that they have inherited the gene. But they were also quite young, Anne, when they tested, or young adults. They are still young. I mean,
well, children. They are 28, 29, yeah. 29, 31, and 34. My 34-year-old tested when she was 18. My boy tested when he was 22, and my other girl, she waited till she was nearly 30. but 2 of them tested when they were very, very young. But you see, for them, they actually do not have a single memory of normal dad. They only know sick dad. So for them, living with Huntington's it's their normal. They don't know any other life than taking care of somebody who is sick and having to give up a lot of playtime and free time and sleepovers. And they lost a lot of that when they were young, because my husband got sick in his very, very early 30s, you know, and he's sick now. Well, I'm, God, 31, 32 years, and he's still, you know, hanging on to life, but they don't know anything different. But I do feel sad. I feel sad that they missed a normal childhood. I feel incredibly sad that they missed a normal childhood. But if I asked them, they would say, well, our life is normal because this is all we ever know. But I, as a mother, feel sad that they have missed so much.
Thank you for sharing. We have a few people who are very or quite active in the chat. I wonder if anybody of you would like to unmute and comment a little bit with us. Yes, Osvaldo.
Yes, because I mean, I may understand. I mean, I got 2 children, knowing I was at risk, because my father has developed HD. I would say late onset, started the symptoms, mild symptoms around 60. In our family, we have got HD, I know at least since my grandmother, so the mother of my father, and she was sick, but again, according to the stories I was told, nobody, okay, we are speaking about ages where HD was even not discovered yet as a disease. And when, I mean, I was open with my wife about this since the first moment, and I told her the risk to have the 50-50 choice. And okay, I would say that we approached the situation in a probably not how to say, complete rational way, in the sense that I remember that when she asked to have children, I went to a clinic in Oslo. I was in Oslo, that we were in Oslo at that time. It was 2011, sorry. And then I started, I wanted to start the process to get tested before to do so. So I tried that road, that path. But then for some reasons, I don't remember, that didn't happen. And in the meanwhile, we had, my wife got pregnant. I remember then discussing what were the choices with the doctor, my general practitioner in Oslo, and in that moment she was like in the 4th or 5 months of pregnancy already. We discovered it later. I mean, she was already 3 months in pregnancy when we discovered she was pregnant. I mean, that's the case. But in any case, we were told, okay, you can do like a test, but if it came out it is positive, then you should really think about abortion. And then we just dropped the shot. We said, okay, that is what let's my wife was very positive, say no, don't worry. But then of course I discovered last year, I went for the test last year, and I discovered I am positive, exactly as my father is. So the same number of triplets, because I was very worried, to be honest, that the number of triplets could have been higher in my case. That didn't happen. And yes, I cannot say that I didn't regret the choice to not have done the path in the correct way. So meaning that if I could turn back time, I would probably go for another path. But then when I do this, I have this thought. I also remember what was all the facts that drove me to the decision to go, let's say, natural, meaning that I was convinced that reasonably I could have a good life until the symptoms starting developing, and in the meanwhile I was quite convinced that medicine and how to say treatments would have been available by the time the disease would have happened in case to my children, if they are positive, of course. Because I mean, the major difference I made was that I would feel more concerned if I know that since the day you are born, you get the disease that developed exactly the same days. Here in Huntington is still unclear when, if the process is, let's say, if something is wrong since the beginning, or effectively it happens for any reason later on in your life. That was just my two thoughts that drove me back and say, okay, it was not an irrational decision. You did some thoughts and you got for the one you think was more appropriate for you. That's it.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing. I'm wondering, we touched upon this in one of our previous webinars about there may be some cultural differences in how we see this potentially. Any thoughts about that? Well, what kind of community we are a part of? I mean, religion here could be really maybe playing a role, or the politics, the reality we are a part of. Marina, did you say anything? Do you want?
Yes, I was thinking to brought up this thing and you told about it. Actually, we in Cyprus, we have a little bit problem about that because it is a small society and they want to keep it secret and to hide and several. And the other thing that Rob talked before is that it has to be the choice of each one of person. In the small societies of Cyprus, the parents or the family, the wider family, they try to affect and change the decision of their children. For example, the grandparents or the one that they had the gene, they try to convince the children to have children or not to have children. And we try with the professionals to help the person to understand that is their choice, and it is very important, this thing. And because we make concern Sasha that she said about the guilty, it was in the conference in Vienna, we make the presentation that time. The guilty is related sometimes to the decision about having a family, because if we have this stigma and this guilty, sometimes it affects our choice. So it's a very big, complicated issue, and all the related professionals have to help the kids and the families to separate it and have a clear decision. Yes.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing. So you are from Cyprus.
Yes.
If not everybody heard you. You said that. No, it's really it's easier to have an opinion on others' behalf in a way.
Mm-hmm.
So and it's easy to think you should do, or we should, or whatever on behalf of others. And what I really think we should advocate for as an association and all of us is really to be hosting what Dina said. There isn't a wrong answer here. Personal choice is the right one for those who make it, being that solution or that solution. And we should really, be respectful to personal choices in respect to all this.
And make them not to be guilty for every choice they make. They have help them to say it's okay, whatever choice you have.
Shaima, you're from Egypt, and you had a comment in the chat I saw about. So you're from a Muslim or dominated at least country, and that could also, I mean, influence quite a lot the attitudes or the environment for these discussions and the opinions of people. Do you want to comment? Are you there?
Yes, thank you for giving me a chance to have a comment on this. But we are different due to religious issues and cultural issues, because we were still in this era of, if we have this IVF and we have some genetic testing for any disease with genetic basis, and if we have to choose the embryo to be implanted and to just choose the healthy embryos, it's not a choice. We don't have this because it is I think it's forbidden in Islam to make something like this. And other thing is, if we have this genetic testing for a product of conception of natural way, and it seems to be genetically affected, abortion is also prohibited in Islam. So it's as a cultural thing, it's not accepted in our culture, and as a religious thing, it's also prohibited. So we don't have much choice like the Western world. So I think it's something to be considered.
So it's for religious reasons, but then it's also really the part of the legislation in Egypt, for instance, that this is not being offered by the healthcare system at all. Yeah. That's what you're saying, huh?
Yes.
So you have to choose to have children the natural way, so to speak, or not to have. That's the choices you have, I guess. Then.
Yes, we have the IVF and we have these things, but it's not done on larger scale for things that I said. This is what I know.
Can I just add something? Because it's not also coming from a very Catholic country such as Portugal, we have these kinds of issues. So the more orthodox, if you want, families will not engage in this kind of procedures because of religion. So it's also a common thing in very Catholic countries. So.
Yeah, not just Muslim countries, also Catholic, maybe in particular.
Yeah.
Maybe, Danuta, you were here, if you are still here, because Poland, I guess, have also quite strict rules on this. Can you comment on that? Are you here, Danuta?
Yes, but you are on mute.
Ah.
Okay, I don't think she managed to. Now it's.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I'm very quiet for a moment because we have big problem with new, let's say, regulation, and we have a lot of problems. Women are, even if there is COVID now and coronavirus, they strike a lot of information about genetics, genetic disease, and the problems. And we are Catholic country, but also that, like, I would like to say this is individual situation. And from our association, I know a lot of family who did the choice before the children were born, with, but this is everything paid by in private clinic. Mm-hmm. But the rules, it's forbidden to have any abortion, any testing, and there is, let's say, but as was at communist time. Then, this is, I'm not from the family. I'm just represent families, and they are very sad about that situation, that they don't have any choice now to, you know, to make decision, because everything is going to be forbidden. It's already forbidden anyway. That is the problem. But I don't know how the private clinic will exist and how will be soon. I don't know. Don't ask me, because I'm very interested about your point of view. But that is also in Poland very, let's say, quiet. Even I try on our conference talk more open, loudly. I invite Alzbeta from Germany. We talk about it, but a lot of young people, they prefer to talk by, you know, just confidential, just with her. But I can't represent the situation, what happened in Poland, because I'm quite old, but I'm very sad what happened. If I answer.
So it's
right.
getting stricter in a way. Things that were permitted and offered before are now really being stopped because of the current government.
Very bad.
Yeah. And it's really sad to hear, in a way, really. And I think maybe it has to do again with the attitudes, underlying attitudes here, that because it's, to me, it sounds quite discriminating.
Yes, that's right. But we have a few families who they have children, like I said, they make their own choice. But this is not open, let's say, subject, not public subject, let's say, very, let's say, confidential with people. But I know that with 6 children, we have, you know, from the good reason, let's say, they make decision. Because.
Thank you. Thank you.
Can I ask you something, Astri?
Yes.
Because you decided to have children while you were still at risk, but then you also thought something similar to what Osvaldo said, that even though I might get sick, my children will have a treatment when they get old. Was that one of the main reasons why you kind of accepted to have children, that you thought there would be a cure?
Yeah, well, what was the main reason? I think definitely, like Rob say, I tend to be optimistic. So in the sense that I was expecting, hoping for science to find ways to cure or at least really help in Huntington's disease. So if you or your sister were to have the disease from me, you would be helped. That was something I was really reasoning about. That was important to me. But another aspect was what maybe Osvaldo was touching upon, was that I was 29 when we really decided we should go ahead and have children. Or I really wanted children. I had a strong, you know, emotional wish that I wanted to have children. And I thought that being 29 at the point and not symptomatic and feeling that I had a good life, and I had grown up with my mother. It had been a complicated life. So Rob, I mean, we all have our different stories, and it was a complicated life with my mother, but it didn't make it unbearable. It was, I feel, and I have felt that all the way through, even given problems in my adult life, that it's been a good life. And I thought that was something I could give also to my children and bring children into the world. And I was thinking also that if I were sick, I would be able to handle that differently than my parents did, with all the silence and not sharing the understanding of the disease and things like that. We should be able to prepare in a better way in relation to taking care of our children if I were developing symptoms. So those were our discussions and my reasoning and how I was thinking at the time. And sitting now, if I were in Anne's position, if I had been sick and you had been inheriting the gene, if I would have felt differently, of course, it's impossible to say, but I don't think so, if I can say that. I would never want that to happen. But if it happened, I think you are such a wonderful person. So I would never have missed you for anything in the world. And I would still hope and think that science could help you.
I agree with that sentiment, Astri, in the sense that I know my two girls have this, but I could not be without them in my life.
No.
They are my life. And I could never imagine not having any of my kids in my life, regardless of the attachments that come with it. You know, I've gotten to know them. They're my people. I couldn't live without them. Just couldn't. So I agree with that sentiment. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes, it's a lot of there's no one answer. I think it's yeah, many different answers and ways to do it.
Yes.
Yeah.
And to relate to this, and we have different stories, we have different ways to deal with it and different solutions. And that's the way it is, and that's really good. And I think, again, it's sad if the options that's technically available is not made available because of some kind of, political, I don't know. I think that's a pity. But as a community, we should be really, really open and host all of these options.
We were talking about having children and PGD and whichever way you want to go. It is an individual choice, and everyone must make their own mind up about what is good for them, what is best for them. Equally so, having the test for HD is an individual choice. And that person themselves must make that decision based on what's best for them, what's good for them. And I don't think that anyone should take that right away. It would be different if these children were going to get sick when they were very young, but they're not. If they have Huntington's, most likely they will be middle age, maybe a little older, hopefully. So as individual people, they should have the right to make that choice for themselves. Not somebody make it for them just because they want children with or without HD. I think that's wrong.
I agree. And the law is, in most European countries, to my knowledge, at least, it's different in Russia, from my understanding, but that you are not allowed to test your children unless they are really symptomatic. So you suspect the pediatric or the juvenile form, but you are not allowed to test your children. It's as Anne says, the law is the same. It's their choice, and they can do it when they are 18. Yeah, because they have to live with it. Okay, my dear friends, I think we should say thank you so much for the contributions, and in particular to you, Rob, but also to all the others who have really shared your opinions and from your own life. It's so nice of you and valuable. And I'm sure people will also look at this after our webinar and find it useful to learn from how we are thinking. So thank you so much, and I hope to see you next Wednesday if you have time. Then it will be Elzbieta sharing again about sexuality. So maybe it's maybe we should have sex first and then children, but now it's the other way around. So thank you so much, everybody. What did you say?
No, I said with current technology that we have, that is no longer a required order.
No, okay.
I can say out of experience, let's say.
Yeah, okay. Thank you so much, everybody, and have a very good night.
Okay, good
Take
night.
care. See you. Bye.
Bye.